AI generated art has taken over the online discourse lately, and you've probably seen all kinds of things about it, so you're probably familiar with how this type of thing works. You go onto an AI generator, you can type in a word or a phrase, and the AI generator will actually produce an image based on that. Many people have argued that these types of programs are unethical, exploitative, and just generally too powerful. While these might be valid concerns, I'm interested in a different question that I've seen circulating, which is whether or not these programs are going to replace craftsmen. First, I'd like to address the main problems that I see with AI generated art. The first of which is that they can produce some really realistic images, at least on a cursory level. But if you start to go into depth and you try to get any kind of details, you usually end up with some really creepy quirks. Some photos created by Midjourney AI really demonstrate this. On first appearance, it looks like it could be a candid party photo, but if you start to look closely into this set of images, there are some serious problems. Here you see the hand is really bizarre. There's too many teeth, and the camera is quite strange. What is that? What is that thing? Hands appear to be a common pitfall. There's often an awkward connection to the body. You know, maybe the wrist is too small. There's usually too many fingers, or even sometimes complete disconnection. It's just a floating hand in the air, or a hand that has, nothing to do with the people that are there. Here's an image also created by Midjourney AI. The prompt was a man stabbed by a sword, Renaissance oil painting. The clear flaw here is again in terms of specificity. The problems are far more numerous in this case. The general rhythm and movement is quite accurate. I mean, it feels like there could be something going on here. It feels inspired by perhaps some classical paintings, but of course, if you look into the details, again, it just falls apart. But I think this dispels a sort of idea that I've seen promoted online a lot. The idea that this could rival master paintings anytime soon is quite the hyperbole. Here's another image created with Midjourney AI. This one is significantly more realistic, but the prompt was also much simpler. The prompt here being portrait of an old man, Baroque oil painting. Again, the general feel is kind of there, but if you start to look into some of these specifics, there's some creepy qualities, such as the eye on the side that's further away from us. Looks quite strange. The ear is a bit hairy, and the choice of the background is definitely questionable. So overall, yeah, I mean, it's somewhat realistic. It's pretty realistic, but to me this looks more like a photo than a painting. Or at the very least, it looks more like digital art or some kind of animation rather than a Baroque oil painting. So with just a small tweak to the prompt, things start to fall apart here. This is portrait of an old man with a baby, Baroque oil painting. Again, from a very, very far distance, this is somewhat believable, but as soon as you start to actually look at the image and you start to look at things more closely, it becomes very creepy. Like, what the hell is going on with the baby's face? And it has like a hand kind of growing out of its neck, and the hands are really bizarre as well. The old man's face is pretty creepy. It just completely falls apart once you add some more of those details. So it's really clear that, at least for now, the AI seriously struggles with details. If you add some level of specificity, or you need to have any kind of limbs, it usually starts falling apart. My hypothesis here is that because it's just taking the average of everything, it's just looking at, the average hand. So it's compiling similar images and just coming up with the average hand, and that's why you end up with too many fingers or very distorted body parts. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's what it looks like to me. It looks like it's just a bunch of hands that have been compiled together, which is from my understanding, what the AI is doing anyways. And maybe with the faces, it's a little bit easier because there's more faces that are in a similar position. I'm not entirely sure, but it's clearly far from being a masterly oil painting. So that brings me into what I think is the real major issue here, and that is that they're going to base paintings off of images. And there's not a lot of images out there of paintings. I mean, you have, of course, many paintings, but these programs are using millions and millions of photos just to produce the images that they do. And there's just not that many paintings in the world. So relatively speaking, the data set for paintings is going to be significantly smaller compared to just any image. So it's only natural that the AI is going to be more advanced in terms of producing what looks like photos, especially, maybe blurry photos or something that's a little bit more obscured that can cover up some of those detail issues. But that's just not going to be on that same level as a master painting. So again, this whole issue of being able to actually study paintings is even further compounded by the fact that they're not going to be able to study the actual techniques that are being used. So how is the AI going to learn these, really high quality, master level techniques that set apart the greatest painters of all time? How is it going to learn those techniques? As of now, it will pretty much have to be on a two-dimensional level, which is a problem because paintings are 3D, and those really great effects are built up through layers. That's what really sets apart paintings and makes them better in many ways than photos, is that they are three-dimensional. You are getting a lot of these effects and qualities that give liveliness through that building. So if you're really going to try to make the best results, you'd have to understand this process, and you'd have to understand how to actually build up the layers in a way to compel the viewers and to make this really look like a painting. The next Rembrandt project really illustrates the shortcomings and problems that come along with trying to imitate the three-dimensionality. Their strategy for solving this problem was to use X-rays and other studies of the sort of topography or the layering that's being used, and then feed that into the AI, which can use it to layer up the painting through 3D printing. So this was perhaps a good idea in theory, but this project really just reveals how it falls flat in practice. One problem I have with this is that they specifically chose earlier Rembrandts. Now, I think I understand why they did that, which is just because it's simpler, it's easier to understand, the paint is more thin, you don't have as much transparency and layering going on. So it's obvious why they would want to go with that type of process. It's keeping things easier for them, but that's already a fundamental issue that's just not going to lead to the best results. Late Rembrandt is way better in terms of the techniques and effects that are being used, but at the same time, they're far more complex, they're less predictable, and it takes way more layering. Getting into all of these detailed techniques is extremely complicated to do with a machine like this. A painter like Bouguereau would be much more suited for this type of project, of course, a much more understood process that doesn't have as much of the randomness involved. But in order to really replicate the greatest paintings, they would have to first develop a much deeper understanding of the unique complexities involved in building up a painting in this way. So this leads to another problem, which is that artificial intelligence is programmed by humans. That's very important to consider because it's the humans who are choosing the goal of the AI. They choose the data sets, meaning what the AI is actually going to study in order to produce the results, and they choose how they're going to kind of go about that process and what the end result should be or the goal to get there. The first problem that I think is very obvious is that the programmers don't know the craft. So they're probably going to choose a lot of details and very specific goals that are just completely from an outsider's perspective and not really what a real craftsman or a great painter would be looking for in a painting. Even if they use some kind of database and they try to base this off of paintings, I mean, you have a problem with what paintings they're going to choose, who's going to decide what paintings they choose, and then even after that, all that the AI is going to do is just find the aggregate of that data set. They're going to compile everything together. So it's just going to look like the average of all of these mediocre type paintings. The main thing that's going to be lacking is the story, which is absolutely fundamental to making a great painting. Because they're just going to be choosing a compilation of images, or they're going to be using a compilation of images to arrive at their result, there's not going to be one clear direction in regards to story. The greatest paintings of all time are based on a specific story, or at least an archetype. That means the idea that they're expressing is generally impactful or something that people care about, but the way that they get to the result is highly specific to the painter and their techniques. In the case with AI, what's likely going to happen is that the paintings will be a wide combination of images compiled together, so there's not a single story that's actually taking primacy. And then the techniques are also going to be compiled together. So you're ending up with a broad generalization in both instances, so that the painting is just going to end up very flat, both in terms of the story and in terms of the technique. The only way that the AI will be able to really tell a story is if a human thinks of the idea and has the AI arrange the individual parts. Now this leads me into yet another problem, which is that there's a lack of creativity and human intuition in the process. But my question is this: are you actually going to arrive at any better results? There's something about the way that we work, that we have this idea in our mind and that we're able to change things as we go. We're able to adjust according to what we're seeing and what kind of information is relayed to us. Another part of the beauty of coming up with the image yourself, part of the intuition that's inherent in humans, is that we have a sort of collective unconscious. We have something, deep within us that we can all relate to. There's specific types of imagery and specific ways of composing that we don't fully understand, but for some reason it's more powerful, and this is a kind of universal experience for humans. So when we come up with these images, it's going to be in touch with that kind of unconscious or subconscious motivation, whereas the AI is just going to be doing what it's programmed to. So a lot of that beauty that comes with the process is going to be completely lost in translation. So that problem is also compounded by the fact that, generally craftsmen or classical painters are not going to have any association with programming. There's very little intersection there, and even if they could try to enlist somebody to help them with the programming or with coming up with ideas, what classical painter or true craftsman is going to want to be a part of that and create some kind of AI that would be in competition with them or trying to, put them out of business in a way? Generally, people who are practicing a craft actually love the craft. They enjoy doing it, they enjoy the process, and they want to be a part of it. So it's a big problem that, these programmers have no idea about the craft, they have no idea about the philosophy, and anybody who they do enlist, anybody who's going to be a part of that, is also probably going to be quite clueless because they're in that sphere rather than practicing the craft. So with all that being said, there are some advantages to AI. Primarily, the biggest one has to be speed. AI can produce some images in a matter of seconds that would have taken even a graphic designer many hours. So this type of speed and the amount of stuff that can produce in a short amount of time is what I think most people find quite startling. For now, of course, a lot of these images are quite flawed, and you do probably have to tune them up or make changes to them for it to make any kind of meaningful result. But I'm sure it will improve, and in the future there will probably be some adoption or a very vast adoption of artificial intelligence in places that need for these images to be created very quickly, such as Hollywood. I could definitely see Hollywood taking over artificial intelligence for all of their CGI and trying to come up with special effects out of nothing. That is one of the major costs of these big blockbuster movies these days. So if they can really utilize the AI in that way, I'm sure they'll do it. Along with the speed kind of comes accessibility, and the accessibility is really a double-edged sword. Many of these programs are capable of operating on even a smartphone, which means that anybody could just produce some type of image in a matter of seconds. So if you thought that anybody could be an artist today, I mean, just wait a few years and wait until the AI becomes even more advanced, and then everybody will want to be an artist. But the problem with that is that, of course, then how valuable are those images? If everybody is just making these AI-generated images, who really cares? You know, there's not really going to be a big market for purchasing those types of images. So a lot of people are concerned that the AI is going to take their job, or it's going to make it so they can't practice their craft anymore. But there are some serious advantages to handcraft and goods that are handmade that I think are worth considering. First of all, you can produce one-of-a-kind originals. There's already been numerous trends that have turned towards handmade specifically for this reason, because people want something that's made by hand, that's unique, that nobody else can get. Of course, okay, you could make an argument that with AI you can produce original images, but it's really not the same impact. A lot of people are also concerned with the fact that handmade is more eco-friendly. Fast fashion is a perfect example of the decadence that comes with trying to produce things as fast as possible. Fast fashion is responsible for a huge amount of waste, so a lot of people have turned back to handmade in order to combat that. Craftsmanship is also worth noting. A lot of people prefer handmade because it has an association with being higher quality and better made. Oftentimes this also means that it's more economical. If it's better made and it can last you a really long time, like a good pair of shoes for example, it's going to last you so much longer. The craftsmen usually love the craft, so they can really offer a lot of assurance to the customers, and a lot of people appreciate that. Maybe one of the biggest arguments for handmade, especially as it relates to the AI, is that it's going to become a symbol of social status. Because AI will be so prevalent and there's going to be such a turn in terms of accessibility, as I mentioned, it's going to be widely spread and widely usable, then of course people will care a lot more about having something unique, having something that sets them apart, and having something that's more scarce. So people will buy handmade goods specifically for the social status and for the fact that it's actually made by hand, which is going to become increasingly unique. Something else worth considering in regards to AI-generated art is whether or not there's actually merit in it. And you know, you could say, yeah, if you use the program and you're the one who's adjusting the image and making it into the final result, then there is some kind of merit there. But personally, I don't think I would get much enjoyment out of that. And I think there's a major lack in terms of the actual challenge and working towards a goal, struggling, having to go through a battle in a way. And people are going to miss out on that. So if you can just produce it so easily, are you really going to feel like you did something there? I mean, where's the integrity? Where's the perseverance? I think it will ruin a lot of fun for a lot of people. So many people will probably choose not to use it for that reason. So you might be wondering, is AI going to replace me? Is it going to take over my job and put me out of business? With the inevitable technological developments that are coming, many people will be out of jobs and many jobs will be taken over by AI. But at the same time, I think this allows for some really massive opportunities in the fields where AI can't take over so easily. The areas that really necessitate a human connection, a human mind, the human unconscious, those areas will not be taken over, and it's going to be very difficult for AI to compete. So in my view, classical painting is so deeply connected to the human condition that there's just no chance AI could ever compete, and there's not going to be any real threat there. You're going to be perfectly fine if you're doing something that is very much a handcraft and concerned with human ideas and human qualities. So I see this as a massive opportunity. I think my paintings and my craft is just going to become more valuable the more that the AI develops, and I'm really going to try to take advantage of that. I think if you're in that position, if you're a classical painter, or if you're trying to learn the craft, now is the time to get good. Now is the time to produce as many paintings as possible, because the technological rise with AI is really going to reveal which crafts stand out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Also, let me know if there's any subjects you'd like me to cover, any video you want me to make, or something you want me to demonstrate. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.